Kikelomo sat at the dining table, the chandelier above her armed with lights. The table was set, but the house felt empty, and the air felt like wet cloths. She heard her own heartbeat. It was loud, slow, and heavy. She looked down, and the plates before her began to look bigger than normal, as if they were growing. On the nearest plate, a silver knife lay across the center. Its handle had shiny dots like stars. The blade shone. She reached for it, her fingers shaking. Suddenly, a mirror also appeared on the wall before her. She saw herself inside it. The image of herself in the mirror showed her eyes red around the edges, like she had been crying. Her lips moved, but no sound came out. She walked closer to the mirror, and then, suddenly without warning, if at all there was someone around to warn her, she buried the knife she was holding inside her own stomach, just above her navel. She pushed it harder and harder. She did not feel any pain at first. Rather, she felt a deep cold, like the inside of a freezer. But then, the cold turned to heat, and she felt a warm flood under her fingers. Blood flowing gently from her obviously stabbed and wounded belly. Still, she felt no pain. Then the floor beneath her turned into a shallow pool of clean water. Her bare feet stood in it. She looked up again and saw the walls of the dining room change into mirrors. Long mirrors from the floor to the ceiling, all four walls. In each mirror, she saw a reflection of herself, but each reflection of her was doing something entirely different from the other. One was laughing hysterically. One was crying profusely. Another one sobbing gently. Another one smiling calmly, while one was gesticulating to her with her hands, as though pleading intensely with her mouth also moving. Kikelomo could not hear the voice of her reflection which was speaking to her, but with the way the lips moved and with the gesticulation of her hands, Kikelomo could sense that particular reflection of hers was saying, "Please don't do it." Or maybe, "Please, you must not do it." Kikelomo stood confused. Why was she saying different reflections of herself? And why was the one pleading with her doing so? And then her head began to spin. She let go of the knife which she had driven deep into her now bleeding belly and held her head with both hands and screamed loud. She opened her eyes, sweating profusely, and realized she was on her bed. No knife on her belly, she wasn't bleeding, and there were no mirrors. That was when she realized that all she just experienced was a bad dream. She was only dreaming. At the same time, Madame Felicia, her boss, had heard Kikelomo's loud scream and so ran out of her bedroom to come check what was wrong. She banged on the door and pushed it open when she realized that it wasn't locked. "Kikelomo, what is it? Are you okay? How did you scream?" Madame Felicia poured in the questions. "I am sorry, ma. I only had a bad dream, but it is nothing. I am fine and okay, ma," Kikelomo replied, still sweating profusely. "Are you sure? What kind of dream would make you scream the way you did? Please, don't scream like that again, no. And make sure you always pray before going to bed so you will not be having bad dreams," Madame Felicia said. Kikelomo nodded her head. "Do you even pray at all?" Madame Felicia asked as she was about to turn. "Yes, ma, I do," Kike replied. Kikelomo, a 23-year-old young lady, had grown up in a small town in Ibadan, where life was simple but hard. She was tall, slim, with bright brown eyes that carried both hope and tiredness at the same time. Her father had died when she was just 11 years old, and her mother followed a few years later, leaving her and her two younger siblings. From then on, she and her siblings had lived with different relatives. Even as young as she was then, she did small menial jobs aside helping her uncles and aunties sell in their small kiosks in order to help provide for her siblings, because her uncles and aunties were poor as well. She managed to complete her secondary school education but couldn't go to the university because of their financial status. So, she kept on doing menial jobs to support herself and her siblings. Then one day, a friend of one of her aunts told her about a house help job in Lagos. Kike didn't think about it twice after hearing how good the pay the person was offering. She took it with both hands and left Ibadan for Lagos. The job was in the home of Madam Felicia, a wealthy businesswoman. Madam Felicia was a widow whose husband died about 2 decades ago. Before Kike Lomo got a job with Madam Felicia's only son, Acien, had been away in London and stopped communicating with his mother. He blamed his mother for his father's death when he found out years after his father had died that his mother had been reluctant to send his father abroad for treatment the time he was sick. But the truth was that at that time, their business was suffering a huge downtime and they had been owing the bank at the same time. So, it was difficult for Madam Felicia to get the needed funds for her husband's treatments. Before she could rally around, her husband had died. Esem was younger then and her husband's family blamed her for his death. So, when her son Esien came of age, they told him the lie that his mother held back money and did not want to treat his father. So, Esien, not knowing the real truth about their shaky finances then and the trouble his mother went through, became angry with his mother. He went to London, stayed there, refused to come home and refused to contact his mother. Well, Kike Lomo started working with Madam Felicia as her maid. Madam Felicia was nice to her and treated her so well. And everything had been cool until that night when Kike Lomo had that terrible nightmare. After Madam Felicia left her room and asked Kike Lomo to pray about the bad dream she had, Kike Lomo picked up her Bible that she always kept under her pillow. She held it and said a short prayer. Lord, I had a terrible and an unlikely dream. I don't know what it means, but please protect and guide me. May no evil come to me. May I not do anything to bring harm and danger upon myself. She prayed and said amen. She lay back on her bed and tried to go back to sleep, but she couldn't. She kept tossing from side to side. She checked the time. It was still late at night. It was 2:13 a.m. So she stood up again and picked up her jotter notes, the one she jots things in church on Sundays when the pastor preaches. Not like she ever goes through the things she jots down after Sunday sermon. But this night, she was worried because of the kind of dream she had. And though she had prayed, she felt she should still study her Bible. She didn't know where to open. She wanted something to guide her and help her with studying, instead of just flipping through the pages of the Bible. Hence, the reason she picked up her jotting notes. She opened to the page of the previous Sunday. The title of that Sunday's sermon said, Guard Your Heart. The main texts were taken from the books of Proverbs chapter 4 verse 23, which says, above all else, guard your hearts with all diligence, for everything you do flows from me. And also from 2 Timothy chapter 4 verse 5, which says, but you, be watchful in all things, endure afflictions, do the work of an evangelist, fulfill your ministry. Kike Lomo remembered that the pastor taught about guiding one's heart against evil thoughts and also wasting no time to block or do away with external things that would seek to purge our mind. She also remembered that he spoke about doing one's work dutifully and efficiently wherever we find ourselves and not letting any evil voice or influence stop us from giving our best in whatever we do. Kike Lomo sighed and closed her Bible. These verses don't even relate in any way to the dream I had, she said. She tried to search for the kind of verses that would help her bind and cast every evil attack and demons. But then, she was not feeling sleepy. She yawned, put the Bible back under her pillow again, and slept off. Later in the morning when she woke up, everything went well. She felt okay and went about her chores graciously as she always does. She even forgot about the dream. And then, that afternoon, Madam Felicia handed her a polythene bag. My tailor, Mrs. Bello, is still not back yet, but this dress is what would suit that conference I need to attend this weekend in Abuja, Madam Felicia said, whilst handing over the polythene bag to Kikelomo. The dress she was talking about in the polythene bag needed some minor mending. She asked Kikelomo to take it to a tailor's shop in the streets before theirs, since a few people recommended that the tailor there was good as well. Kikelomo took the dress and went to the tailor's shop. Immediately she entered the shop, she recognized one of the girls behind one of the sewing machines. It was Joy, a secondary school classmate back in Ibadan. Joy had left Ibadan before she did. It was immediately after they were done with their secondary education. Joy was also surprised but happy to see Kikelomo. They hugged each other and talked a little about old times. When the dress was ready and as Kikelomo was about to leave, Joy decided to see her off. She was the senior apprentice and was like the second boss in the shop whenever their madam was not around, as it was the case then. So they walked and gisted about old times in school, and as they turned to the next street, the wall of Madam Felicia's compound came into view. Joy saw that it was neat and higher than the other fences on the streets. She slowed down. "Is this where you stay, Kike?" she asked, looking at the shining gates. "I work here," Kikelomo replied in a plain voice. "I am a maid here, but my madam is very nice too, and she treats me well," she told Joy. Joy's eyebrows lifted a little. She pressed her lips together for a second, then smiled. "Wow, that is good, Kike. At least it is a steady walk," she said. The following week, Joy began stopping by to say hello and catch up on old times, as she called it. Sometimes, she came in the late afternoon when Madam Felicia was away and Kikelomo was busy in the kitchen. Other times, she met Kikelomo at the street and walked with her back to the compound. She always had something in her hand with her, some cookies, some corn and pear, or boiled granuts. One time, she even made a beautiful dress and gifted it to Kike. Kikelomo accepted the small things with thanks. She liked that Joy never came empty-handed, even though she did not expect it. They talked while Kike walked. Some days, the talk was about tailoring, about customers who wanted clothes finished in half the time, or those who complained about prices even when the work was good. Other days, it was about daily expenses, the rising cost of food in the country, or the little ways to stretch money until the next payday. One afternoon, Kikelomo was washing a basket of spinach leaves in the sink. Then she said, "My dear, sometimes I just wish I could do more than work in somebody's house. Not that I am not grateful, no, but it feels like the money just goes away even before I hold it." What she said made something in Joy leaped in excitement. Joy leaned against the counter and replied, "My dear, that is how life is so when you only wait for salary. You work, they pay you, and before you know, the money has disappeared. But you know, some people decide not to wait for life to give them what is fair. They take it themselves," she said. Kikelomo raised her head. "Take it. Ow, what are you saying?" Joy smiled a little and shook her head and said, "Don't worry, not today. I might not explain everything to you today. One step at a time. But let me just tell you something. I have seen people change their lives because they stopped thinking small. I am just thinking of when this our life of having little would end. I just want a steady work, which doesn't have to mean doing lowly jobs all the rest of my life. That is all, not like I am wanting something big," Kikelomo replied. Joy shrugged, looked around as though looking out for something, and then whispered gently to Kikelomo, "But wait, If an opportunity comes, would you take it? She asked. Kikelomo laughed. Why not? Surely, if I see something better, I will grab it. Why not? She replied as she continued to slice the spinach. Well, the topic shifted that day. They talked about other things as well before Joy left. Later that night, when Kikelomo slept, she had a dream again. She saw herself standing in an empty room with white walls. A knife was in her hand and she was holding the blade against her own chest, pushing it deeper and deeper, and her chest bled. She didn't feel any pain, but her heart was beating fast. She woke up suddenly again, beating hard. She sat up, looked around her small room. Everything was as it should be. So she lay back again, telling herself it was just another bad dream, probably from the day's stress, without even thinking about why she would be hurting her own self in her own dream. A week later, Joy visited again as usual. They sat in the kitchen, Joy's eyes wandering around the kitchen, taking in the shiny appliances and the shelves stacked with imported food items, before she finally spoke. Sure, you know you are in a good position here, Kike. This house, this woman, if it were me, my story would have changed long ago, she said. Kikelomo laughed slightly, not quite understanding what Joy meant. Change how? She asked. What are you saying? Joy began sharing stories about people she knew and stories she had heard of people who had started with nothing but were now living in big houses and driving cars by being smart and seizing opportunities. See, my dear, they didn't sit around waiting for life to be fair to them or give them what they want. They took what they deserve, Joy said. Kikelomo raised an eyebrow. Took what they deserve? How? Joy shrugged again, as she always does, as if the details didn't matter. What I'm saying is that sometimes life puts you in a place for a reason. If you play your cards well, you can turn your whole story around, though, she added. I don't understand all these things you are saying, no, Kikelomo replied. My dear, don't worry. Think about it. So people wait all their lives for luck. Others take it. Maybe you should start thinking of how you can seize your destiny, she said before leaving. Kikelomo didn't reply. She walked Joy to the gate as she left. But the words of Joy stayed in her mind for the rest of the day. Seize my destiny. How? She kept wondering. The next time Joy visited, she brought a small sachet with her. Inside was a tightly sealed, fine whitish powder. She placed it on Kikelomo's palm casually, as if it was nothing. What is this? Kikelomo asked. Nothing dangerous, my dear, if you know how to use it. Just something to help you, she said, her eyes locking on Kikelomo's own. A little in the right place can open doors for you. Look around. This woman eats the food you cook with your own hands. Just put a little in her food. Not much. It doesn't work fast. Just slow and gentle, she said. Kikelomo's stomach tightened. She dropped the sachet on the table immediately. Joy, what are you suggesting? There's no way I can do something like that if I'm right about what you are suggesting, she told Joy. See, I am not forcing you, but think about it. You deserve more than just sweeping floors and washing plates for the rest of your life. Joy, this is dangerous, Kikelomo said, her voice now shaking. Joy's voice dropped lower and lower. Dangerous is wasting your whole life watching someone else's plate while she's living in gold. Dangerous is having a door open right in front of your eyes and refusing to walk through it. Kikelomo began to shiver as she wrapped her arms around herself. So, are you saying you want me to kill her? She asked in a whisper. Joy leaned closer. Look, I want you to kill your poverty. If she's gone, control will not sit with only one person immediately. She said that her son has cut off all ties with her. Houses like this takes time to settle when the only person remaining dies. Lawyers will drag their feet, accounts will freeze and unfreeze. In that gap, people close to the house can shape outcomes. I know how to move in that kind of space. We can plan it. Kikelomo stared at her. We? What do you mean by we? What do you know? You don't live here. Joy gave a slow smile. Look, my dear, don't worry. Because I know what to do after. You don't have to carry all that alone. You just put it and let her go first. When she dies, I can step in and help you, she said. Ikelomo shook her head and dropped the sachet back across the counter immediately and told Joy that she couldn't. Well, maybe now you may not be able to, but keep it and think about it, Joy said. Then she stood up, slung her bag over her shoulder and walked out. That night, Ikelomo tried to shake off the conversation from her head. She told herself that Joy was probably just joking and being her usual dramatic self. But she could not help remembering the look in Joy's face. That look says that Joy was serious. That night, Ikelomo had the same dream again she had been having. And like the other times when she woke up, she just dismissed it. Well, the sachet stayed with Ikelomo for many days. She tried not to think about what Joy told her and had advised her to do. But the thought was already planted deep in her heart. Joy kept coming whenever she came. She didn't mention anything directly about the powdery substance, but she kept talking about stories of people who took control of their lives, planting the idea deeper and deeper in Ikelomo's heart. Then one Friday evening, as Ikelomo dished the vegetable soup that Madam Felicia had asked her to prepare, she paused, closed her eyes, and they slowly brought out something from inside her apron pockets. It was the sachet containing the powdery substance Joy had given to her. Slowly, with trembling hands, she took a pinch and sprinkled it into the bowl of vegetable soup. And that was how it started. When she did it the second time, she told herself she was not going to continue with it anymore. But Joy told her not to be timid when they met, encouraging her to not back out, and so she continued. Even amidst her scared state, she would try to focus on work and act normal. But every time she saw Madam Felicia walk past, she felt a small knot in her stomach tighten. Meanwhile, one afternoon, Madam Felicia received an unexpected call from her son, Essien. Essien had stumbled on his late father's former account officer in Barnsley, who had long been in London before Essien even became an adult and moved to London himself. The account officer told him the truth about his late father and the company's financial state at the time of his father's death. Essien realized that his mother had been telling the truth. He felt bad and decided to reconnect with his mother and asked for her forgiveness. Essien, having reconnected with his mother, informed her that he was coming back to Nigeria to visit her and to spend some time with her. The day Essien arrived, Ikelomo saw him first from the kitchen window as he stepped out of the car. He was tall, dressed in a simple shirt and trousers, and looked far more handsome than the picture of him Ikelomo had seen. That afternoon, Madam Felicia asked Ikelomo to serve her and her son lunch. Essien barely looked her way at that time. He was focused on talking with his mother. It was only later that day during dinner that he spoke directly to Ikelomo. He asked her name, where she was from, and thanked her for serving his mother and looking after his mother and the house even though she was only a maid. In the days that followed, Essien greeted Ikelomo well whenever they crossed paths. He did not act like he was the son of the boss and that she was a maid. He talked to her warmly and would sometimes engage her in discussions when he came for water in the kitchen. And soon, they became more like close friends, always gisting and laughing. Ikelomo began to feel bad and guilty again about what she was doing to Madam Felicia. She knew that if Essien finds out, he won't be as nice as he is to her. Meanwhile, Madam Felicia was now beginning to show signs of weakness, constant headaches, fatigue, blood visions. The poison was beginning to take effect slowly. Essien even asked her a few times to go see the doctor, but typical of women her age, she dismissed it, refused to see the doctor, and attributed it to old age. That she was now aging, and what she was experiencing was common with old age, she told her son. Now, beyond friendship, Kikelemo was beginning to develop a feeling of attraction towards Essien. You know, talking to a fine man who was also being nice and friendly towards her, and had never treated her or looked down on her as a maid. Well, it wasn't just her. Essien too was beginning to feel the same way about her. At sight her beauty, he saw that she was quite very intelligent despite not being to the university. He also liked her good sense of humor and how she made him laugh genuinely. He realized that he hadn't felt this happy and calm all the while he was in London, and none of the girls he had dated had had such an impact on him. So, he liked her also, even though he didn't say anything about it. Kikelemo decided to stop poisoning Madame Felicia. She could no longer bring herself to do it, especially since her heart was now in love with Madame Felicia's son. She told herself that besides, Essien was here now. Why she had listened to Joy and agreed to do it was because at the time, Essien was not in the picture. He had cut off all connections with his mother at the time, and Madame Felicia had been alone. But with Essien around now, there was definitely no way they would even see anything to collect if Madame Felicia dies. So, Kikelemo stopped the poisoning. However, when Joy asked her the following week about how their plan was going, and she told Joy that she was no longer continuing with the plan, Joy threatened her and insisted she must go on with it. Years ago, when Madame Felicia was younger and was just 3 years in her marriage to her husband, and her son Essien was only a year old, she was on her way back from a birthday party of a friend at around 1 a.m. when they were attacked by armed robbers. The armed robbers didn't just steal from them, but 2 of them raped Madame Felicia. Now, when Felicia was leaving for the birthday party prior that evening, her husband had asked her not to go. He didn't like the fact that Felicia's friend had fixed a birthday party in the evening in the club lounge. He told Felicia to stay back home and be with their 1-year-old son. But Felicia insisted that she would go because that her friend had been nice to her when they were in the university. So, when she was raped on that night on her way back, the fear and shame didn't allow her to tell her husband. She only mentioned the robbery and said nothing about the rape. And then, when she became pregnant soon afterwards, she knew it wasn't her husband who was responsible, because he traveled to London for a 1-year work training 5 days after the incident of the rape and hadn't touched her before he left. Scared, Felicia traveled to a remote village in Ondo State before her pregnant belly would protrude and people would notice. She stayed with one Mama BC, a poor old woman she knew when she was in the university in Ondo State. There, she had her baby, left the baby with the woman 1 week after she had the baby, and returned with Essien, who had become 2 years old at the time, back to Lagos before her husband returned from London. She told the woman she would return to her baby after settling and explaining things to her husband. But she never went back. She abandoned her baby with the poor old woman. That baby is Joy. On her deathbed years later, when Joy was already grown, the old woman told Joy everything about her real mother, Madame Felicia. She told her her name, her husband's name, and her son's name, gave descriptions and an old picture of Madame Felicia. So, Joy is angry that Madame Felicia abandoned her as a baby, leaving her to suffer and live all her life in abject poverty while she enjoys her wealth. So, when she stumbled on Madame Felicia's picture the first time she followed Kikelemo home, and even later when she kept seeing Madame Felicia, she told herself she must take revenge on her. You are my tool to have my revenge, Kike. My plan from the onset is to kill that woman and take whatever I can take from her house, Joy told Kikelemo after revealing the story of her past and connection to Madame Felicia. Kikelomo froze, shocked at Joy's revelation and her quest for revenge. She begged Joy not to do it, or at the very least, not to use her as her revenge tool. Listen to me, Kike. If you back out now, I would go to Madam Felicia and ACN and expose the truth about us to them. They would be mad at me at first, but they would have no choice later but to forgive me because I am their blood. But you see they would send you to jail and you will be dead the rest of your miserable life. So you better do as I say now, so we both have a happy ending. Joy told Kikelomo. Kikelomo felt caught in a web she couldn't untangle herself from any longer. And so, scared of Joy's threats, she continued putting the poison in Madam Felicia's meals. Still, the connection between her and ACN continued to grow. Madam Felicia grew weaker by the days, and one day, ACN decided that he was not going to let her be and would take her to the hospital. He decided to call the doctor to come check his mother, to test her, and told her that if after the checkup the doctor said something was wrong, then he would force her to the hospital. But before the doctor could even come to the house to come do the checkup, Madam Felicia slumped that afternoon. ACN rushed her to the hospital in his car. At the hospital, it was revealed that Madam Felicia was slowly being poisoned. Without thinking hard, Kikelomo was the first suspect. ACN, angry by the findings, got the police and headed home to get Kikelomo taken to the police station for questioning. However, they met Kikelomo with her belongings trying to leave the house. She was apprehended and taken to the police station. She didn't deny it. In tears, she revealed the entire truth, that Joy used her to try to get revenge on Madam Felicia. Joy was arrested as well the next morning before she could get the news and escape. ACN was heartbroken and disappointed with Kikelomo and even his mother for her past mistake of abandoning her child years ago. That was when he revealed the beautiful plans he had for Kikelomo. He showed her the international passports, documents, and visa to London he had processed for her because he planned to give her a new and better life. He showed her the engagement ring he bought because he intended to propose to her. He revealed how he had spoken to his mother about it and how she had given her blessings. He was only waiting for the doctor to come check his mother that afternoon before he was going to propose to her that same night. All had been a beautiful planned surprise. But his mother unfortunately had collapsed and he had to rush her to the hospital. He felt disappointed at Kikelomo that she allowed greed for his mother's wealth enter her heart and that she was actually going to kill his mother because that was the reason why she had did it in the first place, though she had tried to back out later. Anyway, Madam Felicia, who was taken in for emergency treatment, did not survive it because her intestines had been damaged. She died after asking Joy to forgive her for abandoning her years ago and to ACN for keeping such a secret away from him all these years. ACN returned back to London after burying his mother weeks later. Though he vowed never to have anything to do with Kikelomo and Joy, he tried to drop the charges against them. But the government took the case up themselves and sentenced the two ladies to life imprisonment. They called their actions a murder. For Marcel, Kikelomo replayed everything. Her meeting with Joy, the powdery substance and her greed. Then she remembered her dreams. Same constant dreams every time for many nights. She remembered the first time the dream started, remembering that it was the next morning of it she had reconnected with Joy again. And then the Bible verses she read after the dream that night. The first one had said to guide our hearts. The second one also spoke about being watchful in all things and doing one's work with all diligence wherever they find themselves. She realized that by doing what she did, She wasn't only killing Madame Felicia, she had also been slowly killing herself. She had destroyed her life with her own hands and missed the opportunity at a better life. Her dreams and the Bible verses now made sense to her. It was all a warning. She wished she had taken her dream seriously and sought to understand the message behind it. She wished she had taken those Bible verses the Spirit of God led her to read that night seriously, instead of looking for Bible verses to cast and bind demons. She wept. Meanwhile, Joy, in her own corner of the cell, also understood too late that revenge had given her nothing but loss. If only she had come out openly and spoken about her hurt when she found her mother, Madame Felicia, finally realizing that revenge had only chained her to the very pain she wanted to escape from. And so, the two ladies lived out the remainder of their days behind bars. The end.